What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? It is your boy Rufus. We are back at it again with another installment of the Rufus Rundown podcast. Happy Wednesday to you all. Got a lot to talk about. We have, obviously, a lot to talk about in terms of the NFL and the playoffs and what went down there. Got some NBA stuff to touch upon. We're going to start with a story that was quite wild to begin with as well, but also, check out the gear. Coach Prime gear. Yeah, a little Coach Prime gear to get us going. Repping the Saints, even though the Buccaneers are doing what we should have been doing in the playoffs too. But hey, without further ado, let's get into the episode. If you do enjoy today's episode, be sure to like and subscribe on YouTube. Also, be sure to follow the show and leave reviews on Spotify and Apple Music or wherever. Not Apple Music, it will be Apple Podcast. Wherever you do enjoy this podcast. Starting it off with a wild story out of Chicago. Now, they had a Ring of Honor ceremony where they were inducting any players to the Ring of Honor to their Hall of Fame, which is surprising to me that teams like are just now starting to introduce like Hall of Fames and stuff like that. Like I mean, growing up as a Red Sox fan, we always had the numbers up there in the right field section in terms of Red Sox Hall of Famers, Patriots Hall of Fame. Like we've been to, it's a thing. Growing up in New England, so I mean, we went on field trips to Gillette and we'd go through the Hall of Fame and whatnot, and I don't know. It's weird for them not. I think obviously the Minnesota Vikings have like the Purple People Eaters. Purple People Eaters. There we go. That's English. They have that whole ring. They have the Ring of Honor there as well too. So I think the Packers have the same thing. So it's crazier for an organization like the Bulls to kind of wait that long. But it was supposed to feature like Scottie Pippen, Michael Jordan, Dennis Rodman, and others. And obviously Jerry Krause, the GM of those 6 championship teams. And while he was depicted as kind of a villain in the Netflix specials, you know, he's still responsible for putting together those teams. Phil Jackson as well. You know, there's a lot of people that deserve credit. And for as much as they painted Jerry Krause the villain, he deserves his credit. Well, Jerry Krause has passed away. And his wife, Thelma, went there and received the honor on his behalf. Now, allegedly there were boos. When you watch the actual video, I don't have the actual video queued because I want to, have Charles Barkley speak on it as well too. Charles is very outspoken, but when he's right, he's right. And I think he's very entertaining. And in this instance with Jerry Krause Jerry Krause's wife, I should say, obviously he's passionate about this, and I want to touch upon what he had to speak about. But in the video, you really can't hear that many views. I couldn't. If I were just queued up with that, and didn't have time to edit one to pull up here, but. Just like that alone, but a lot of people said there were boos, and they talked about it in the broadcast as well. But we're going to take a look at what Charles Barkley had to say, first and foremost.
I want to be very careful here because, Chicago, I love that city, but what happened in Chicago the other night was a disgrace. It was a flat-out disgrace.
The booing of Jerry Krause, the late Jerry Krause.
The booing and having his wife cry like that. That was wrong on so many levels. Michael and Scottie and Dennis not showing up, that was wrong. It was a complete disgrace to the legacy of the Chicago Bulls. They've always been a great, great organization, but for that thing to go down like that, not to have the greatest player in your organization there and won 6 championships, and Dennis and Scottie, and first of all, I don't even know why you would put 100 guys in the Ring of Honor anyway. That's just stupid. But what those fans did to Mrs. Krause, that was not cool. And they owe that lady, everybody involved that owe that lady an apology. Whether you like Jerry Krause or not, that man's dead. Rest in peace. His wife is there. And y'all made that lady cry. And that was total BS.
Wife, kids, grandkids.
Yeah, that was wrong, man. To have that lady crying like that hurt my heart watching that thing.
It was painful. And again, that's not an indictment of all Chicago fans by any means, but those who chose to go that way. Yeah, I'm with you.
So yeah, Charles Barkley touching upon it. Obviously, he believes in what he believes in. And I agree with him. I think it's you make the woman cry. I mean, and that's the problem with this situation, right? Is it's a bunch of millennials, it's a bunch of people my age that weren't even alive for when the Bulls were doing that dominant run, right? They're all at the game there. All these younger generation people, they watch a Netflix special and think that they know something. and they start letting it rip and booing a poor widowed old lady whose husband was responsible for putting together the 6 championship teams that you claim to be a fan of. That's where the problem is. It wasn't the older people. It's people my age that's the issue. People my age in the 30s, like people that weren't even alive or old enough to actually appreciate those championships are the issue in this moment. Booing an old lady, making her cry. That's the issue. That's the problem. People my age, the millennials, or the 30-somethings that, again, weren't old enough to appreciate it. They watch a Netflix special and then, I'm going to go boo this old lady. Yeah, your husband was mean in this special because they depicted him that way. It's still 6 championships. He was very good at his job. And you wouldn't have won those without him. And maybe because of him trying to remind people of that too much, it made him the villain at that point. But Disney souped it up. ESPN raised the stakes with it. And that's it. And they won through it. It was dysfunctional, yes, at the time, but wasn't always like that. You could see that he was good with kids. You'd like him to be around your kids. He was great with the kids. You could go rewatch that special and see the good things they said about Jerry Krause. Of course, he's glanced over because they were making him not just out to be the villain, but of course there were things he did that were villain-like. But he had a job to do, and that was their decisions. You make a bad person. You boo his wife or his widowed wife. Come on now. And again, like they had said, it's not an indictment on every Chicago fan, but again. I don't really think it is. I think it's the indictment on the Chicago fans that don't know any better than my age. Just go and start booing a poor old woman. That's it. But anyways, we'll transition to the NFL playoffs. And does Miami have a quarterback problem at this point? I think they do, with Tua Tagovailoa once again struggling in a big game. Now, I like Mike McDaniel as well, too. Don't get me wrong, I've been a big Mike McDaniel fan, and I think the in-season Hard Knocks has shown that, but it's once again another big game that the Miami Dolphins don't show up. And now, I thought this was a Miami Dolphins team that was going to upset the Kansas City Chiefs. That'd been cool. I thought they were with the ground game, but they did not. They didn't have much success in the ground. They didn't really have success anywhere. I mean, Tua struggled once again. Barely completes 50% of his throws, just a little bit over. I don't know what the issue is. It just kind of seems like he's. I mean, I've seen a lot of videos breaking down that he's reading it, and I don't know enough, and I haven't watched enough film to tell you that that's the situation. But I really like Mike McDaniel, but it seems like and we'll get into the conversation of front runners later, of course, with the Dallas Cowboys. But it seems like they're a front running team. It seems like when everything's going good and they're up, that's great. But when the going gets tough, they struggle, and they struggle mightily in these big games. And again, the Chiefs really haven't been the ideal offensive force most of this season either. Patrick Mahomes didn't play that well. I mean, throwing and everything in the cold, it was negative 20-something, was not wasn't going to be the main method of attack, right? But even the Chiefs found a way, and their ground game. I mean, offense wasn't the name of the game here. It was the Chiefs' defense that once again came through, but. It's just the continued story of Miami faltering against these winning teams, right? And in these big games where they just can't get the job done. And I think their first win against a winning team was the Dallas Cowboys, which again allows me to tease what we're going to talk about coming up later in the episode as we go through each of these games. I mean, it's just kind of poetic that way, right? That we're talking about how the Dolphins can't compete against these better teams. And we're like, well, they beat the Cowboys. And I remember talking about that. I'm like, I don't know. Is this more of a thing to talk about with the Cowboys losing to the Dolphins or to the Dolphins finally getting their win against the winning team? Well, now I think we have our answer considering how both of it ended. It was just, it was kind of a coin flip of underachievement. And that's what we have here with the Miami Dolphins. Now, Tua, you can't pay him because he's only a product of what's around him. At this point, I really like the improvements he made into McDaniel, and this is something that came up with Flores trying to move off of him, and they went with a coach that could get more out of him, and they've gotten more out of him, but it's still not enough. And in these moments, I mean, obviously, still has to improve. Mike McDaniel, spoke about it well in the press conference. I think he handled everything well. I don't think this is a Mike McDaniel problem yet, but if Mike McDaniel doubles down and bets on Tua Tagovailoa, it very well could be his job next that they're looking at. Because if he bets that he can make this work with Tua, and Tua continues to perform like this in the big games, it's just as much on him as it is on Tua. So that's going to be a difficult conversation this offseason. You have plenty of weapons there. You can maybe make moves in the draft, or even there's going to be some free agents and guys to make moves for. We'll see. I mean, I don't know how much better you're going to get out of the top 10. I don't know. He's in the ballpark, but what kind of move can you make? You can't pay him. He's due to be paid soon enough, so this might be like kind of an exclusive franchise tag situation with Tua Tagovailoa. I'm not sure. And, you're going to have to pay him at some point. And I don't think you can pay a guy like Tua at this point because of these missing performances in big games. And again, it's another playoff game that he did not show up in. And you look at the quarterbacks that are left in the playoffs, right? The Lamar Jacksons, the Patrick Mahomes, the Josh Allens, the C.J. Strouds, the Jordan Loves. There's only one quarterback, and that's Brock Purdy, that is not a first-round pick, and he's quite the outlier. And Tua was a first-rounder too, but like you look at the difference makers that those guys are, the true talent that those guys are. And some of them have come back from being down and out, like the Jared Goffs of the world. And we've seen Tua improve and now being counted out once again. But you got to get the quarterback right. I mean, Purdy's kind of an outlier in this situation, but again, there's a lot you can learn. And especially McDaniel coming from that system, there's a lot you can learn from Brock Purdy. We'll see if they win anything. They very well might go out and lose this week. We'll see if he can win anything. They might lose to the Packers, and it might be more of the conversation of, again, quarterback and first rounders. And Tua, again, a first round pick. And what, 5 or 6? 6, I think. Or 5, you go right before Herbert. So you have to get your quarterback right in this league to make it deep into the playoffs. Look at Dak faltering out. Once again, he's great during the regular season, but you get to January, struggles. So it's the same. It becomes the same topic with Tua Tagovailoa. What does the future look like? And I don't know. I mean, the thing is with Miami is how do you move off of him? But you cannot pay him. That is 100% confirmed. You cannot pay him. But I just don't know where the move is off of him. So you're not trapped yet, but it's a very difficult situation to work out of. And it allows me to go to a point where a team that got the quarterback right. I mean, you can make excuses all you want about these guys. It was this. It was injuries here. It was a run game, or it's been the concussions, or whatever it is. This kid's unreal, and this kid's he missed games with injury this year too. And he just balls. He's just flat out balling. Him and Jordan Love. But youngest quarterback to win a playoff game. They win 45-17. Now, the Browns' defense does not travel well. Whatever that may be. 16-21, 274 yards and 3 touchdowns. Run game was okay, but obviously the defense made some plays in the Browns as well, but it's Joe Flacco in there. But look at what he's doing. Brevin Jordan, Nico Collins doesn't even have. He had his main threat at receiver. Oh, I'm drawing a blank on his name. I'm drawing a huge blank on his name for whatever reason. But again, Nico Collins, younger wide receiver. And just rookie head coach as well, too. So, it's incredible to me. Noah Brown being on injured reserve. No, not Noah Brown. That was the shoulder. Why can I not think of Tank Dell? I was drawing a blank on his name. Tank Dell, missing him at this point. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who he's missing. He just finds a way to get it done. He's a rookie head coach. And still finding a way. So you can make the excuses to the guys all they want, but they have a rookie head coach and a rookie quarterback combination going to out of a wild card. No, they were divisional winners. Coming back to win the division late in the season, and then moving on to the divisional round. And a very winnable game for them because of how right they got it at the quarterback position, which is just very impressive. You just cannot. I mean, Schultz with the touchdown, the one catch for 37. I mean, some of the throws he was making, too. I mean, he had the screen to Brevin Jordan. Of course, Mechie's starting to come around. But, again, you have to get the quarterback position right in this league. And the Texans are a perfect example that they get the head coach right, they get the quarterback right. Now, there's still a lot of time where that could go wrong, but clearly the Texans are playing with house money. And sometimes you can win big with that, too. They're still alive in the playoffs. And of the Texas teams that we have left in the playoffs, not just up the playoffs, that we're in the playoffs, they clearly have that upward trend. So kudos to the Texans front office and the Texans coaches. Getting C.J. Stroud. I mean, he went number 2. And the Panthers had every opportunity to take him at 1. And, of course, the situation you fall into, of course, the ownership with the Panthers ownership and their front office and the weapons that he had, a little different than the situation C.J. Stroud fell into. But even then, a lot of young guys and a lot of unproven factors here with the Texans, and C.J. Stroud has just been making it happen. Just slinging touchdowns all over the yard. You have to get your quarterback right in this league. And again, the playoff games themselves, like the order of it perfectly sets itself up, right? I mean, I kind of went out of order here, but now we go back to this guy who struggles in January. Has a winning record in every month of the NFL season except for January. Tells you all you need to know. Now, I mean, it's not just on the quarterback, right? It's not just on Dak. He came out and said, yeah, I sucked. Came out and said it. I'm glad you're acknowledging it. I don't know if it's a Dak Prescott problem. I don't know if it is a Mike McCarthy problem. But there are certain issues there. And what happened is they're almost causing Jimmy Johnson to have a goddamn heart attack. The same thing with Michael Irvin. Michael Irvin's just going crazy. He's going to have a heart attack. It's Jimmy Johnson closer to it, but let's take a look at Jimmy Johnson trying to get him hyped up at halftime. Dude almost went down. How red his face is getting. It's all because the Cowboys underachieved this much that Jimmy Johnson's almost going down and swinging, trying to get the team fired up. This team is putting one of his feet in the grave. It's crazy.
Well, first of all, I can't say what I would say now on television, but I'll just say this. Every single one of you, you know how hard we've worked. I don't need to have people pointing the fingers one thing or another. You get your rear end in there and you play the way you know how to play. We can win the game. We're going to open it up. We're going to go fast tempo. Defense, get after Jordan Love. You can't give him that much time. You do what you're supposed to do, we'll win this game.
All right. That got Michael fired. He's got everybody fired up.
No, Mike, no.
Let me get in front of you. Me first, you, Ryan.
No. I could not agree more. That's embarrassing. You cannot.
Get Gronk and Michael Strahan getting down there. They get the whole crew fired up. And again, in that score in the second half is not reflective of the game. I mean, Dallas is making it interesting. It's garbage time. It's garbage time. It was an absolute blowout. In the conversation between them and the Eagles. What is it? I don't know what the future holds for them. Just both of them now. It's like, one was downward trending, one was upward trending. They both get blown out. Both NFC East teams get blown out. And again, I don't think they're ever going, and I've said it before, I don't think they're ever going to achieve postseason success with this guy at quarterback. I don't. And the same with Mike McCarthy, but I don't know who your answer is, but we'll get to that in just a little bit. Let's take a look at what Michael Irvin had to say about the situation in Dallas. That game, it was just, the fans are one thing, but these former players that are champions, of course, Jimmy Johnson, great success, Michael Irvin, great success, they're losing their minds.
Every damn where, all across this country, all across the league, they stood up to defend their city and defend their team, except in the city that deserved it the most, except the team that's most recognizable and deserved it the most. What do you do when all you have don't understand what they have? When I got here, I understood the men before me. They built the Dallas Cowboys. They made this America's team. They put a championship on the table before I got here. My job while I was here is to match what they have done because they built it. They handed it to me. Put my damn championship on the table. That's all we ask. Put your damn championship on the table, and you couldn't do it. All their asses gotta go.
I think that's a huge. What the Cowboys mean to people, and especially the culture of some of these players. I think some of it might be done up for the camera, but all he has gotta go. I try when I see stuff like that, I try to not watch it all the way through. Try the genuine reaction, and now you see the guy on my screen there. I told you we're talking about it later. Is this the guy that that would have been him looking at that team after that performance? But no, seriously, is Bill Belichick now going to be the answer in Dallas? Is because Jerry Jones is he? I don't think he's able to work with Jerry Jones. But there's no bigger destination for a guy like Bill Belichick than Dallas at this point. I mean, of course, the Falcons interviewed him, which, of course, there were plenty of memes about him going to Atlanta to interview. Like someone said, posed the question, name a moment where you were facing extreme adversity and were able to overcome it, which of course, 28-3. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think Bill Belichick would want any part of Dallas. I mean, with his legacy, I mean, it's a real coin flip there in terms of legacy. Like if you make it happen, to when no one would ever forget you winning a championship in Dallas, but also, I don't know. I'd like to see him go to Dallas. I'd love to see the headlines, him take a shot at. I'd love to see if they, whatever would they ever do Hard Knocks there, how they would go about it. I would love to see Bill Belichick end up in Dallas and see what the future holds. But again, with Dak Prescott, I never see them achieving any type of high success going to a Super Bowl, even winning a Super Bowl, or going to a Super Bowl with Dak Prescott as our quarterback. Now, where do you go to go get that quarterback? Again, it's the same kind of thing with the Dolphins. What are your options? And there aren't many. And once again, you have to get the quarterback right. That's Jordan Love, who to begin this season was not looking too good. Was not looking hot. But they figured it out. As of late in the season, they've hit on another quarterback. As far as anybody can see, they have hit on a quarterback again. So between Favre, Rodgers, him, they prepare their guys. They draft well. And Jordan Love absolutely lights it up. I mean, they have a really young core of receivers, and I remember them talking about Matt LaFleur and how they're going to see the real offense. Almost the same identical stat line to C.J. Stroud with the 3 scores. Aaron Jones had 3 scores of his own. I mean, it was just an absolute blowout. But how Jordan Love's been able to come around and develop more and more accuracy has been incredible. And really, his first year starting, and he deserves more hype. Jordan Love deserves more hype because everybody's hyping up C.J. Stroud, as they should be. And I've talked about it now with C.J. Stroud. Everybody was all crazy about Patrick Mahomes when he was lighting it up. A lot of these rookies are first-year guys when they first stepped in. No, and Jordan Love kind of slipped by because of how much he struggled earlier in the season. But now that we're here, I mean, it's kind of too late. I mean, I think building it up, he deserved it, but I think people were kind of hesitant because of how much he struggled early on in the season, especially with accuracy. But man, you have to appreciate what he's doing now. You have to see that this kid's a stud, that he's making it happen. And again, house money. If this team goes to an NFC Championship game, imagine him and Stroud matching up in the Super Bowl. I mean, I can't see that. But really, I mean, to win a playoff game with this kid and have this young core intact, certainly there's some moves to make, I think. But the way that he picked up his play as of late, my goodness. Look out for this Packers team now in the NFC North for years to come. And you think the Lions, they finally get back, which we're going to get into in just a second. You finally get back to well, not back to, but you find when your first playoff game, what, 1992? And you win your first division for quite a while, too. And now you got Green Bay's got another quarterback that you got to deal with. And this is only his first year now. He's really coming into his own. So, got to feel for Detroit in that case. But before I start to feel bad for them, let's talk about it living up to the hype. I mean, this game was wild. They win by 1, big defensive stop late. Stafford getting booed, which we'll touch upon. But Jared Goff, man, wow. 22 of 27, a touchdown. They trusted the ground game as well. Amon-Ra St. Brown having a big day. Puka Nacua had a big day for the Rams as well. I mean, just an explosion here. I mean, this is one of the best football games I've seen all year. And, again, Puka, I had something in for Amon-Ra St. Brown and Puka Nacua both combined for over 175 yards between the two of them. Puka had 181 on his own. So that hit, like, just absolutely slam dunked down. It almost hit in the first half. Of course, Detroit gets C.J. Gardner Johnson back. Aiden Hutchinson, 2 sacks. I mean, and you just look at like how both teams, like, you know, the Rams have obviously won a Super Bowl with Stafford, but all the pieces that the Detroit Lions brought in from the Stafford trade, and how impactful they've been able to be over this period of time. And just how much they've gotten right in the draft, the right pieces. And Dan Campbell was laughed at when he first came in his interview, talking about biting kneecaps off and how they said he's been beaten up. But just take a look at how this team plays. And they're just finding a way. Now, got to take on a Tampa team that has certainly been on a high. But this looks like this is an NFC Championship game team. Now, are they a Super Bowl team? I don't know, but if they're one step away, you never know. This is a team that I thought was a Super Bowl team earlier in the season. I kind of stepped away from it because they lost some of the bigger performances. But now the run that they're on while they're in the dance, they're in that conversation. I mean, I don't think people talked about them as a Super Bowl team as it was, but they were a sleeper, and then they started to become a favorite for me. I kind of backed away from it. But considering the 49ers are going to be coming off the bye, I see no reason why the Lions can't be a Super Bowl team at this point. I mean, what a performance. Now, again, like I mentioned, Matthew Stafford did a lot for Detroit in his time with the Lions. And he got booed by the fans. And, you know, he was asked, hey, you happy for them? You happy for the city of Detroit and the time he spent here?
When Sean McVay was up here, he said that he was happy for Jared Goff and whatnot through their time together. You've been here in Detroit for your first 12 seasons. Just how do you feel about the city of Detroit, you know?
I'm happy for the players. Happy for those guys.
Matt, you showed incredible.
He's happy for the players. Not the best look there from Detroit fans, because the guys, like, the injuries he played through, what he did, and Matt Stafford's wife has been pissed about it. But instead of harping on the negative there, let's move on to what Josh Allen was able to do with the Bills. He's back. He's back to his old self. He's back to doing what he does. And that's just being an absolute game breaker at the quarterback position. That touchdown run that he had where he just found another gear to get into, to escape, was absolutely wild. I mean, Mason Rudolph had a couple plays in this one where, you know, the Steelers tried to make it interesting, but really Josh Allen with 3 touchdowns to the air, 1 on the ground. No turnovers. Impressive. That 52-yard touchdown run, man. Wow. I couldn't believe it. Could not believe it. I mean, this the second gear that he found, man. And that Shakir play as well. I mean, the tackling from the Steelers just wasn't good enough. I mean, kind of house money there, too, with the backup quarterback. It's more of a negative than a positive. I mean, we'll take a look at whether Mike Tomlin will be back as well, too, because apparently, you know, not apparently, I got video proof. He walked out of the interview when they asked him about whether he'd be back or not, which again, we'll get into. But, I mean, Josh Allen, everybody wants to say something about his turnovers, and it looks very bad and ugly at times. But the way that they've done the offense now, and the fact that they, you know, run more screens, run the ball more, and with not just Allen, but they kind of turn him loose in the playoffs now. You know, they kind of changed and revamped the offense, and the defense came around, and they, were more scheduled and the play calling was better, but now they kind of just turn it loose to Josh to make plays. And my goodness, that run is just him. That run is just him, and it's why you can't prepare for him. And it's why now with them getting the home playoff game, that win over Miami being a huge difference maker, they get to take on the Chiefs at home. And this is a game I think that the Buffalo Bills will take. I just think with the way that Josh Allen's playing right now, I don't think as good as the Chiefs defense has been down the stretch, and really the whole season overall, I don't think that they can keep up with Josh Allen. So again, we'll see what the future holds for this Bills team. But this Bills Lions Super Bowl, anybody? Watch, both of them will lose now. Just curse both of them. But I don't know, the way when this guy's on, I think you just have to kind of put up and deal with the bad games and the turnovers that he has, because you can see when he's at his peak, nobody can stop him. Nobody can compete with him. So that's what I'm looking at here. You just can't keep up with Josh Allen. It's ridiculous. So you have to learn how to cope with the bad with Josh Allen, because this is what you get out of him when he's at his peak. Let's take a look at when Mike Tomlin was asked about his future with the team, which, of course, like the second question he was asked in this interview was, so, like, your contract, you got a year left. He's walked out. Just ask the guy about the game. Like, worry about that after. I mean, I guess it's kind of a legit question, but just not right after the game. Let's take a look.
Anyone?
Mike, you have a year left on your contract.
He doesn't want to talk about his contract. He's lost a playoff game. Like, let the man think about it. He hasn't even looked over the game enough to give you the right answer in the game. He's only you can't do it. You can't do it. It's just not the move. I think it was like his second question. He's just like, I'm not doing it. And now everybody's reported he's back. We've Ian Rappaport's come out to say that he is back with the team next year and 17 straight seasons without a losing record. He's in the right spot, and they're making the right decision there to bring him back. Now, the quarterback situation, that's something. He's got to find the right offensive coordinator to help Kenny Pickett, and whether it'll be a competition with Mason Rudolph. Tony Romo's come out and said that it's kind of like Geno Smith. He's actually can legitimately can compete for a starting job in the NFL after going through a lot. It's kind of the Geno Smith situation. We'll see. I don't necessarily agree with that point, but hey, Tony Romo definitely knows more than me. I'm not going to agree with him. I'll when I see it, I'll believe it. But yeah, to ask that guy that question right after that loss is crazy. Maybe like when they do the meeting a couple days later to kind of like close things out, you think about asking him that. But second question after a playoff loss, no. And George Pickens out there complaining about the referees. Again, they had the backup quarterback. It would have taken a lot, and they did actually put up a pretty decent fight, especially through the second half. But the only person who really can go toe-to-toe with Josh Allen the way he played is Patrick Mahomes. And we get to see it again this upcoming week. It's the only person I think who really can compete with Josh Allen. He's playing at that level. So the fact that they actually kept it somewhat respectable with Mason Rudolph in, I think speaks to the performance that they put together. Now, after the Eagles start 10-1, and now lose 5 of the last 6, and then this defeat, right? Addition, subtraction, 5 of the last 6, 6 plus 11. Yeah, so now 6 of the last 7. What does the future hold for Nick Sirianni? Because there's clearly an issue in this Eagles locker room. What does it mean for Nick Sirianni? Because Shane Steichen's done very well with the Colts, and now all of a sudden the team looked completely different without Shane Steichen as their offensive coordinator. Of course, he loses both of his coordinators, and then they start off hot and they ride off last season. But the second some stuff starts going bad and they lose a game, the wheels absolutely came off. And it's clear the stuff was going on in the locker room even before that. Jason Kelce has since retired, and that's a huge, monumental leadership voice that they are losing. I've posted about Jason Kelce on some of my social medias. Be sure to follow there as well. That he's one of the best athletes this league has ever seen. Yes, Jason Kelce is one of the best athletes the NFL has ever seen. Linemen are athletes too. And to be able to play at the level that he did the tush push. You don't see other teams doing it. The difference is they don't have Jason Kelce. They don't have the way their line plays. They don't have a center that can do what he does. His trap blocks, the way they're able to move and pull the center. Incredible career from Jason Kelce. But to go back to the point with Nick Sirianni, what is his future? Because this is another situation where you have a super talented roster that culturally is just lost now. And now you're losing another voice in that locker room. You have guys that are getting older and aging in terms of leadership and their ability not really matching up. You didn't get the most out of Jalen Hurts. He definitely came back down to earth. He did not have the same season he did last. So what is the future? I mean, you certainly need to figure out what your coaching staff is if it's not going to be him as head coach. I mean, who are you going to move on to? Jim Harbaugh's available. That could be something to move on. Bill Belichick's out there. Will he go to Philly? They were underachieving. He said he wants to go to an underachieving team that he has to build up. I don't know. They seem pretty underachieving to me in the sense that they lost in the first round to a Buccaneers. Now, credit to the Buccaneers. This is what the Saints should have been doing too. I've told people 9-8, you make the playoffs, you win the South in an ugly way, and you just make it into the dance. You make some noise. And Baker Mayfield has revived his career. Everybody wanted to call him a bust, and he had good times in Cleveland, then played through the injury, had bad, and then moved all the way around the league, and now he's gonna probably get a pretty good payday. And the Bucs make it in. Again, it should have been the Saints. The Saints having the easiest schedule in the league, and it's why Dennis Allen. Again, this is another thing where this guy is still going to be employed. There's other guys that are going to be looking for jobs that probably more qualified. Probably with his team and the talent in that team would do better. But I don't know if it's time to move on from it. Clearly, there's a cultural issue, and you might need to reset that locker room. I don't know how many guys are going to be to go to bat for him. Get Jason Kelce on the staff. That's what you need to do. Bring Jason Kelce in to coach. Make him your line coach. I mean, he probably wants to take some time away. Time with his kids, time with his family. Of course, he's the podcast and stuff too, so like money and his media availability certainly not going to be an issue. But what's the future look like for a team that was 10-1 and then loses 5 of the last 6 in the regular season and then proceeds to go on and lose to a 9-8 Buccaneers team that had been soundly beaten by the Saints and barely is able to make it by the Panthers to get into the dance? Oh, by the way, I don't know. Like I said, I think it's just it's a huge locker room issue, and they look defeated. Troy Aikman was all over them. The tackling was not good. I mean, it's the fundamentals and it's the energy in which they play with. And I think that comes down to just the setup and the mentality and the attitude of the team overall, and that starts with the head coach, and it's clear that there was a disconnect there. Not just during the season, but as the season moved on, it got worse and worse, and they distanced themselves further. So that's how the rest of the NFL playoffs shape up. We'll have more matchups. Then I'll have more picks coming up this week. With Brandon Mendes in the show, we'll be able to ask Brandon Mendes about that as well. To end it off, though, we're going to take a look at some hoops. And this was such a funny sequence for me, but what I didn't know until I did some more research was what followed it. But let's take a look at Rudy Gobert's air ball from the free throw line. Now, what you may not know about this situation with the bench absolutely clowning Gobert for this is later on in this game, Gobert would make 4 straight clutch qualifying free throws, and block Kawhi Leonard while on an island to win the game for the Timberwolves. I mean, so I was like, wow, it's just a terrible miss. And I've never been a big fan of the Rudy Gobert trade, but they have finally really turned that around. I thought it was too much for Rudy Gobert, but now you look at it and what this Timberwolves team is able to do. They're first in the West. Anthony Edwards, a true superstar. They've been able to make it work with Karl-Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert because you have a true center. Towns was not. So you can still space the floor. Now, is this another situation where they're a young 1 seed that, goes and loses in the second round? Maybe so. But Anthony Edwards is an absolute dude right now. I mean, look at the Western Conference standings with them in first, the Thunder behind them. Look at all these young teams. Nuggets and Clippers looking like they're going to be competing for a championship. Pelicans, Kings. I mean, it is tight out in the West. Lakers out just barely on the outside looking in. No, they're just barely in, but very well could be on the outside looking in soon enough. But look at them just clowning Rudy Gobert for this miss. I mean, I think it's hilarious. But you can't go out and lose. After that, and not only lose, I mean, not to put Rudy Gobert in a Michael Jordan conversation because they don't belong in it, but he took it personally. Living life through a meme. Brutal air ball, comes back, hits 4 free throws in the clutch, and blocks Kawhi in a one-on-one matchup. It wasn't just like he kind of came back behind and hit the layup. No, they isolated him. They found a way to get him in a isolated situation with Kawhi Leonard in the final moments of the game, and he got a block on him. So, all credit to Rudy Gobert there. A little bit of a laugh there, but then who really got the last laugh? And that was Rudy Gobert and the Clippers. I'm sorry, Rudy Gobert got the last laugh on the Clippers. The Timberwolves getting the win. And still first place out in the Western Conference. We'll see how that adds up. And a guy like Anthony Edwards, man, he's just, people aren't talking about him enough. But when it comes down to it, they're a dangerous team, and they've been building this up for a couple of years behind Anthony Edwards. They got that draft right. And I wasn't sure if they did because he talked about not saying he could have played any sport and his interest levels. Man, that dude can compete and that dude can play. But that's all the time we have for on this episode of the Rufus Rundown. Appreciate you tuning in on this fine Wednesday. Stay tuned for a podcast where Brandon Mendy's coming this week, also with some more NFL picks going into the weekend. But for now, it is your boy. Oh, before I sign this off, sure to follow on all the social medias, link down in the description below. And now, here's your boy Rufus, signing off.